Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, April 19th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And I have to say, I make every day a happy day. Joel, today it's a little bit of a challenge because we've got some rain going on around here, and that doesn't always pick my mood up, but I've got things that I'm looking forward to this weekend, and that's really the best part. In fact, I don't know if I told you this, I'm going to hear Abraham Hicks on Saturday.
Really? You didn't tell me that. That's amazing. Where are they at?
In Greenwich, Connecticut. We bought the tickets about a month ago, and Louise and I are going to go down there and see what it's like to actually hear Esther Hicks as she receives the messages of Abraham. So it's going to be pretty interesting.
That is awesome. That is one thing that I want to do, and I often, the timing of when they sort of been in driving distance has never worked, but they often are in Asheville, and so I get there often, so I'm going to time that one day and really see her, and I've always been fascinated. But the messages are so strong, regardless of how it's delivered. I've always just really appreciated the messages.
Oh yeah, the messages are terrific, and obviously that's the main reason for going, just to see, what does she have to say, or what does Abraham have to say, or what's going to come out. I would think also
exactly, and it for me at the very beginning, the first time that I'd ever heard of Abraham Hicks and all that stuff, I had my negative base that I operated under at the time really had a problem with the delivery, and I was skeptical, and as I moved on and heard it, it's irrelevant, the delivery. The messages are so on point, you can get stuck in the delivery system or just appreciate the message. And I have much less of a problem with it now. I don't have any problem with it now at all. But at the time, that was part of my evolution of just accept the message.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would think that they also do it in Washington, don't they? In Washington, D.C., that would be a little bit closer than Nashville.
Well, Asheville is where I'm going, and nothing. A bullet to my head to drive to Washington D.C.
Oh, I see. Well, I understand that one. Yeah, the Beltway is not my favorite place.
Yeah, I'm often in Asheville. Me driving the drive from Richmond to Washington D.C. is just one of the worst drives in the country. It's about 90 miles. And it should take you an hour and a half, 2 hours. It can be forever.
It's just
true. The traffic on 95, and it's nonsensical in how it's laid out. You'll be doing 81 minute and dead stop for 30 minutes the next for no reason.
Yep.
So so I've resigned that. Maybe I could take the train up if they're up there. I didn't think about that. That's probably
what possible, I should do. Yes. Take the train. That way you don't have to deal with the crazy drivers.
Exactly. So, but overall, it's just, I'm so happy you're able to go, and I can't wait to hear next week.
It's going to be really interesting. I mean, Wendy Dillard has probably gone to the most of them of all of us. I think she's gone to like 5 or 6 different Abraham Hicks things, including one of the cruises. And the report she tells me is that each year the message evolves. I mean, the stuff that we read in their books and hear on a lot of their tapes are actually kind of old news in a sense. And so apparently what they're talking about now is even more in-depth than it was before. So I'm looking forward to hearing what it is.
That's amazing. That's great stuff.
Yeah. So I thought today we would talk about, as usual, I'm drawing something from your Facebook timeline, and you posted a really interesting one. The post said, your circle should want to see you win. Your circle should clap loudly when you have good news. If not, get a new circle, which I thought was great advice. So I think the only thing that's left is to tell people, how do you get that new circle? And I figured that's what we could talk about today. Because, how do you change your circle?
Well, the habit of your circle can be, I work with a lot of professional athletes, and one of the problems that a lot of them have to deal with is when they go from some difficult backgrounds and maybe not the best group of friends, when they automatically go from extreme poverty to having $10 million in the bank.
Oh, yeah.
That's a drastic change. It's an amazing change that most people can't comprehend. Everybody says, well, so much of that, yeah, I would love to have that problem. But it really is such a culture shock. And the concept of that group of people that they're used to hanging with automatically view them in an entirely different way.
Right.
And so the dynamics of that relationship, one of the things that I work with early with these young is developing a new core group of people around them, of people that aren't after their money. And again, I'm not saying all of their people are that way or all the previous friends are that way, but it is the downfall. If you really look at the history, it's the downfall of many professional athletes, and getting stuck in some old drug behavior, no matter what that is. And Aaron Hernandez was a New England Patriots guy who had a real hard time escaping his previous circle of friends that ended up costing his freedom, then eventually his life.
Right.
And it's so I use that as a sort of the easy example to look at, but one of the things that people who don't even really participate in or understand how the law of attraction works, there's studies that your income is pretty much within a certain percentage of the group of people you hang out with. It is your beliefs are based on a lot of pretty much where you hang out with, and that's when you understand that the group of people and the energy that they are putting off is what you're absorbing. So finding a new group, it sounds, well, that's easy. Well, and finding a group that is appropriate to be around. When I first got into a 12-step program for my addiction to gambling, you have to choose a sponsor, or it's wise to choose a sponsor. And what I did, I looked around the room and saw somebody who was living a life I wanted to live or could envision living, and said, well, I want to do what that person's doing. Mm-hmm. And that's who I chose to be my sponsor, even though I didn't really like the guy. But it was someone who I knew that if I wanted to get better, I had to have people that were doing things that made sense. And so in today's world, my group of my pack of friends, so to speak, are generally, they think like I do. They well, nobody thinks like I do, but you understand. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But they have a lot of the similar beliefs and have open-mindedness, and they're usually into working out. They're usually into sort of a lot of the concepts that I'm into, and I love having my pack with me, because I know that we're vibrating or have that same type energy. So you when you're out seeking that, you're looking to surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, and that becomes sort of the quest as you move forward.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's certainly an important quest, because until we change our circle of friends, I found that out very early in my life. Until you change your circle of friends, it becomes much harder to change your own stuff that you want to change in your life. Back in when I was in my 20s, in college in particular, I was a really heavy partier. And by the time I graduated from school, about a year after that, I had gotten to a point where I was kind of lucky. I decided I didn't want to have that anymore. I didn't like that lifestyle. I didn't like the way I felt after a night of partying and all that. And so I consider myself very lucky for that. But on the other hand, my friends were partiers. What do you do? Well, literally what I did was, Joel, I fired my friends. As strange as that sounds, I fired my friends. I didn't have anybody to replace them with. I just said, look, I can't hang out with you guys anymore. I'm sorry, and goodbye. And that was it. And now I had to start from scratch and build up a new set of friends. And actually, it took me quite some time, because I was also a very introverted person at that point in my life. But just the act of firing my friends did more to help me get myself straightened out than anything else.
That is such a strong statement, because it reinforces sort of what science tells us, the idea that the group of people that you are with are sort of the biggest influence on you, whether you realize it or not. And not even, the concept of you can pull people up, and I'm not saying you can't help people or have friends that aren't exactly where you're at, but having people that are in general on the same mission. It can be at different levels of the mission, but or journey. You know, that's so exciting to have people. I love, one of my favorite things to do is have discussions. Like you and I have a discussion every Thursday.
Right.
And I enjoy that. And having people that you can discuss things or even debate things on a level that is meaningful, not just some ridiculous, meandering of a discussion, but something that really, invigorates me. So I love discussion. I love debate. I love looking into all of the stuff that I believe in and sharing it. Not to change people's mind. I always want to learn from everyone else. I love to hear other people's point of view and to adjust my point of view. So I think that's invigorating when you have those types of friends. I have friends that at the gym that, we just have that similarity of working out. We don't have a lot in common other than that, but when we're at the gym, we're great. They're not people that I would hang out with on a Friday night, but they're my gym friends. So you can have different circles, but you don't need the group of negativity that has negativity or that group that drags you down. I have a couple of friends that I don't interact with them often, but they're longtime friends. And I have had to be careful when I'm around them not to get it drawn into their just anticipation of the negative, their reminder of how bad things are all the time. They're in pain or they're in this, and nothing I can do can persuade them from that. So I just had to accept I don't really need to be around them. I can, if they send me a note or something, that's great, and I can respond to it. But I don't need to invest my energy toward them because their energy is the exact opposite of the energy that I'm trying to project. And unless they're seeking my energy to improve, and they're not, they're actually trying to get me on board with their complaining in the world of there is no answer to my problem, and I just want to complain about it.
Yeah, you decided that the one kind of party you don't want to go to is a pity party.
Yes, I do not accept any of those invitations, and I've actually told people that I've had and of course usually it's not with great results. But I had a friend posting I had a friend post one day on Facebook. It was like 20 complaints, just griping about everything in his life. This guy has a really good life. And
he has a good life and he gripes about everything? Wow.
My first response was, my first response was, I'm sorry, I'm busy. And he put a question mark. And I said, I am too excited and having too good of a life to attend your pity party.
Nice.
And he didn't like that at all. And I didn't care, but it wasn't meant to be mean. It was just, come on, but what is this about? We look at everything from that perspective, and that is our reality. And so the exciting piece of having people that look at things that are going in another direction, the idea that I want to look toward everything is sort of building. I'm excited about every day, and I don't need somebody who's dreading every day to live that life. I feel sorry for people that are stuck in that pain, and I can offer what I can to help, but I do not get invested or stuck in their drama and chaos and all of that goes along with it, because it will drag me down, and I don't want that.
Yeah, and I don't blame you, because there's no benefit to it. One of the things that I really admire about what Abraham talks about, Abraham Hicks, is that you can't help someone from your own position of lack. The only place you can help them from is from your position of abundance and of joy and happiness. And the interesting thing, of course, that goes along with that is they have to be receptive to it. If they're not receptive to it, you still can't help them. The only thing you can do is set the example for them. So every time that we have somebody who basically pleads with us to get depressed, and we get depressed, we can't help them. And every time that we decide to stay in the positive place, and they get pissed because we're not in the negative place with them, we're doing the best we can to help them. There's nothing else we can do to help them. So we have to be willing to say, you know what, that's as far as I can go. I'm sorry, I wish there was more I could do, but there are limits to what I can actually do in reality.
And that especially when it becomes to trying to come up with a concept, it is a very difficult place to look at when it's a family member or somebody that, you want to help somebody you want, but at the same time you realize you're powerless when they're in that place of when they're shut off in that negative abyss. My positive energy, it's like a black hole. I'm not going to exhaust my supply of positivity and I wake up and find myself in the middle of this darkness. And I don't do that. I've lived there before and I don't want to live there again.
No.
And I'm very willing to help anyone who wants to be helped. But at that same token, I will not be drugged down into that horrible place where everything is just so negative. And it's within our power to be happy every day, no matter what I know kids that are dying of cancer that are happy. I know people that are struggling with certain things that force themselves to be happy. And so when I hear somebody say, well, I actually heard a man say he didn't get this account. He's an investment guy. And he said, I was really looking for the account. He said, my year's screwed. And I'm thinking, you're going to make like $6 million this year. And now, I'm sorry you didn't get that account that would have brought you $1 million, but you still are going to make $6 million. Now, I'm not trying to minimize the fact you lost a big account, but it isn't a screwed year. It's, we're talking, at the time we're in March, it's like, it's not, but that's how everything for him is I'm anticipating the worst. And it comes even when he's living in great abundance. And that again, that proves where he can't see his abundance because of the addiction or the habit of the negativity or the thought. And that's somebody that I don't want to be around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, I like your comment about how you want to be able to help people, particularly people who are close to you. But I also found a story that happened to me in the last few days that also points out there's another side to that. I had a family member contact me. She was doing her taxes at the last moment, and she'd run into a situation it was an unusual thing for just this past year. It wasn't a regular thing that happened every year, so she wasn't sure. She thought she had entered it properly in her tax program, and she was getting a result that said she owed a whole lot more in taxes than she should have. And she wanted me to help her solve it. Well, I was 12 minutes away, Joel, from doing an afternoon podcast. It was not exactly the most opportune time for me to do it. And I said, look, I understand. I believe what you're saying, but I can't help you right now. I got a podcast to do in 12 minutes. And kind of in a huff, she hung up. And I haven't heard from her since, which makes me wonder, did she solve the problem herself? I mean, is it possible that by me not just jumping right into the rescue for her, she actually decided to take it upon herself to solve the problem? Because the deadline for getting the taxes done is passed.
Right. Well, the problem solved itself, or she solved it. One of the two is taken care of for sure.
Yeah.
Because the deadline's passed.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that you just described, and this is a hard concept to grasp, having the willingness to let somebody, the pressure of her needing to get that fixed may have empowered her to get that fixed. The helplessness of the call is I have a similar example that go way back to my very difficult struggle days.
Mm-hmm. I
had an old Nissan Sentra with like 300,000 miles on it.
Oh, you had one of those too, huh?
Yeah. And I had no money is an understatement. I was waiting tables and living on anywhere between $75 and $100 a day, and that's paying rent. And, it's not a lot of money.
Right.
And so I had this old car that I'd bought for $300, and I get up one day to go do something, and I go to crank it, and it won't crank. And turns out the alternator was shot.
Uh-huh.
Now, I am the least skilled human on the planet in fixing cars. I mean, there is no one with less skill set in that area than me.
Well, I can probably give you a run for your money.
Yeah, well, I'll take that challenge. So I called up to the local repair shop and said, I'll put one on for $100. Well, I'm not kidding you all. When I say $100 then is probably the equivalent of $50,000 to me today. I'm not kidding. It's that combination. It's like
Yeah.
I did not have $100.
Right.
And so I had like $61 to my name, and I had to go to work that day. So he said, well, why don't you just go up to the junkyard and get a rebuilt one they have them for $27. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Will you put it in? He goes, no, my cost is the labor. He said, you can do it. It's real easy. And I didn't see it. So when all other options failed, when there was nothing else to do, I just simply went to the junkyard, took my old one there. They gave me another one. I put it back exactly as I remember. I think there's one or two plugs and some screws, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And my car cranked up. It worked.
Nice.
And I was just so impressed that what I just seemed, so I was forced into action. And that's something that you may have done for this person, or this person will feel the consequences of waiting to the last minute or whatever. But either way, the problem was fixed. It was fixed one way or the other.
Right.
And it'll either cost her some money, or it'll be something she'll be able to handle. But at the same time, you didn't contribute to that helpless state.
Yes. Exactly.
And that's important. And I've been, a lot of my work is with a lot of I use it 25 to 30-year-old, what I call failure to launch kids. And they have been debilitated by their parents' wealth and their helicoptering parents.
Talk about what that term is,
because
you used that term before, but it was like a year and a half ago the last time you referred to somebody who was helicoptering. What is that?
It is where a parent they hover right over the child, and when I say child, sometimes it's even a 25-year-old, and they are micromanaging their life. They're filling out applications for them. They're helping do their resume. They're completing schoolwork for them. They're calling teachers and trying to find them jobs on their own, and it debilitates the kid. I have a very wealthy family that I work with, and she has a 29-year-old son who he's a brilliant, good-looking kid, great skill set, brilliant, and has no ability to implement anything. He is emotionally wrecked when anything happens. He just can't respond because of his parents have always provided. Now they're so wealthy, and this is sort of sad, that he never has to work. It's not even that concept of work. It's just everything that it just destroys him. And she doesn't have to. She chooses to interfere and not let him feel any consequence.
Yeah.
And so this goes on. And so when you look at that, we just what you're talking about, or we're surrounding ourselves with who we're surrounding ourselves with. Again, it's about choices, how we choose to live our life, how we choose a perspective of where we're at. And when I have people, I don't want enabling people in my life. I don't enable people. My son, Justin, I believe he's 12 now, and just this week, we put an alarm clock in his room, and he's responsible to get himself up now. We're working on making your breakfast, getting your vitamins, putting your dishes away. And that's not because I'm trying to be mean. I told him I shouldn't have to be getting up at 5:30 in the morning to make sure you get ready. I want to start sleeping in, and you can get yourself ready. And that there's nothing that I want him to be able to take care of himself. And that's what I want for all of my clients. I want for me. And so like you're talking about, when we get out of that zone, you don't want a group of people around you that are dragging you down or not allowing you to grow or not encouraging you. I always talk about when you always warn people, don't do that. You don't want to fail. If I have an idea and somebody tells me the first thing out of their mouth is why it won't work, I don't want that friend. I don't need that friend.
Yeah, that's true.
I want somebody to say, wow, that's a great idea. I don't mind hearing I think your biggest challenge will be, or this is the area that I can see where you're going to have the most focus to do, but it will never work. I mean, if that were the case, nothing would have ever happened in my life.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But that is the challenge, because if we have a negative circle, let's call it that, a circle of people who are not supportive, who are always finding out what's wrong, the glass is always half empty, and so on and so forth. If we have that circle, clearly we need to change it, because we've described many of the reasons why that needs to happen. However, just because we say we need to change it doesn't mean it's easy to do it. I mean, I remember, like I described earlier about when I was in my 20s and I fired my friends, but I had no idea how to get new friends, particularly since I was not a particularly outgoing person, and I didn't know how to do it. So it raises the question: how do you do it? What's the steps that you take? What's the first few steps you take in order to get that new circle of friends, the one that's supportive and the one that's the circle that is there to, like you say, to applaud you, to celebrate your good news and so forth?
Well, I think the first step is, where would those people be? Let's start with that.
Okay.
That's sort of the beautiful thing that we have going on now, and there's a lot of negatives to it, but the internet has tons of sites like Meetup and where they have all kinds of meetings. There's people advertising for mastermind meetings. That they're having a mastermind meeting. Toastmasters is a very positive organization. There's tons of organizations you could go to that are minimal or free in cost, and that you would have like-minded people. That's where I start. I always tell people that every city has a Toastmaster. It's one of the great places to start. It's the concept was originally started for people who had a fear of public speaking, and it's an opportunity to learn how to do that. But it's good for anyone. Like-minded, positive people. There's talks on law of attraction, probably in every city. We have a local, I call it a little hippie place. I love it. It's called Elwood Thompson's, and they always have meetings of holistic health or law of attractions, and I've done a few of them there. And you'll get 25 or 30 people, and all those people there are on that same path. There's certain churches that are more law of attraction mindset kind of concepts that might help some people, but finding the place where the people who you want to be your friends are at, it sounds so obvious, but I'm not going to catch a snapper in fresh water. I need to go to salt water to catch a snapper. I need to go to the places where the people are at. That I want to hang out with. So first of all, identifying where they're at and placing yourself there, even if you're somebody who is an introvert, by walking in that door, you're making a decision that I want friends. I want that. And so this is a time in our life that you can locate those people much easier than you've ever been able to locate them before.
True. Yeah, that's very true. I have to say, I did not realize Toastmasters had such positive people in it. I mean, I've never really been to a Toastmasters meeting. And I kind of wish I had known about it back then when I was in my 20s. I would have tried it, just not so much for making speeches, but just because finding a better caliber of friends, that would have been a good thing to do. So that's a good piece of information. Is. I mean, knowing that the people at Toastmasters are generally positive people. I didn't know that. I may actually check out a Toastmasters in my area just for that. Not that I need to do public speaking because I do podcasts now, but I mean, just to find more positive people. I'm always looking for positive people.
Well, and when I I do motivational speaking, and when I have a new sort of speech or talk that I want to be giving, I often will go and go to Toastmasters and sort of test it out. And I don't, clearly you probably gather I don't have a fear of public speaking.
No, I don't think so.
but it's a wonderful place to get input and feedback, and a lot of times I'm pretty good at timing. If I need to speak for 30 minutes, but they're really good to help gauge how long. If I have a 30-minute speech that I have to give, that I need to keep it at 30 minutes and not my normal 4 hours if I keep talking. So they're really good at helping. They give me good constructive advice of, that's good. You really got your point across probably like 9 times. You probably should cut it down a little bit. And, or, you should expound more on this. So I love their input, but everything done is with a positive spin. There's no negativity. There's no judgment. It is such a positive place. So that is a wonderful place to start. And if you truly are an introvert, the byproduct of that is standing up in front of, maybe 5 or 6 or 10 people. That's usually how many's in the group, and talking, and you become more accustomed to it. So it is a wonderful opportunity for people. And there's other organizations out there, different kind of service clubs, that do that. But again, I think it's meetup.com I get something law of attraction based all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other places I find is very much of the same thought. It's just sort of a different name. A lot of people are scared off by the name, but a lot of Buddhist meditation centers are around the country.
Oh.
And they have they're very welcoming. I've been to one. I didn't know what it was. I know sort of a lot of the Buddhist type thought, but it was just a very, you walked in to do some meditation, but they had a little discussion beforehand, and we did a little meditation. And so just being creative and finding like-minded people that are on that same mission, and you go where they're at, and then the natural attraction of energy will you'll automatically have a group. That's the beauty of where the time we live in today. Back before the internet, those were harder places to find.
They were. Oh yeah. When I was in my 20s, I didn't have the internet. It would have been great if I did, but I didn't have that advantage. So yeah, I totally buy into what you're saying, and I love the idea of these kinds of groups. I think you're really onto something. The other thing that occurs to me is if you have something that you love, particularly a hobby or just a favorite activity of some kind, maybe it's a sports activity, whatever, that's another good place to at least look. Because if you can find other people who love it the way you do, you have at least that much in common. And assuming that the thing that you love is a positive thing and not a self-destructive thing, I think you're probably going to find some other more positive people there, don't you?
One of the great things that I see now, I'm personally not into this, but I know a lot of my, I call them sort of the geek-minded friends, and I say that in a very nice way. I love them, but they're into like Comic-Con, whatever you say. That's where
right.
You have all the all the sort of Star Trek-y crowd goes.
Yeah.
Well, they're a really cool group of people. They really are. They're very much into sci-fi and comics, and they dress up in costumes, and while from an outside perspective, you might be going, okay, that's a little weird, and it is. But it is something that is very positive to them. So that matches what you're saying. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about my working out is every time I've move to a new city, and I didn't realize this till years later, I join a gym, and I instantly have friends. I mean, it's a group of like-minded people. I've been into many cities where I just walk into a gym and you automatically have people there that are like-minded. You start talking. I've never failed to have a workout where at least with the field gym, at least to have a little minimal conversation. But most of my friend set when I moved to a new town are derived from my gym friends in the beginning. And so having that passion has always helped me create new friends pretty quickly. So again, passion about things. I have a friend that's very much into model railroad, the little scaled down railroad.
Yeah.
And he has a wonderful friend support group of all over the country because those meetings are taking place everywhere. Now that doesn't interest me, but it does him. So within the context of what you love, find what you love, and then find like-minded people. And it's amazing how you can find your tribe, so to speak.
Yes. Finding your tribe. That's a good way to describe it because a good circle is like a good tribe, isn't it?
It is. And it's good to have some different folks in there. And I don't want everybody with the same exact point of view, but I have a Facebook post that I'll do every couple of years, and it basically goes on of all the vast differences in my friend group. And I mean, I literally have friends who are billionaires, and I have friends who are on food stamps. I mean, I have friends that live in New York City, and I have friends that live in small rural towns in Georgia.
Right.
And no matter what, these are all my friends. The one friend group I don't have, once I figure this out, I don't allow negative energy into my friend group. I have acquaintances who I keep at arm's length who are negative, but they're not in. They don't have any energy toward me. I have a really big shield against that. So negative folks aren't allowed, but positive, no matter where they're at, it's not. That's the commonality of all my friends.
And ultimately, if we're using law of attraction to our benefit, then just being in a positive mind space, that tends to attract more positive people as long as we stay there. At least that's what my experience is. The times when I'm not staying there, the times where I let myself kind of, slip into the doldrums or whatever you want to call it, then nobody shows up. But on those occasions where I start reaching out in my own space, so to speak, and pushing myself up into the higher levels, the levels where I feel good and where it feels like good things are happening, then good things do happen. And among that set of things that happens is I find new people who are positive.
Right. And that is once you realize that you are doing it, then it becomes like a habit. You have the ability to do that. I'm often amazed at the people I run into when I unintentionally invite positive and people speaking to me and starting conversations. And I am shocked at the number of law of attraction people out there. I will often mention in the gym, I reference the gym a lot because that's where most of my free time is spent. And I'll have somebody say, yeah, well, how long have you been working out? And I jokingly say, because it's usually true, much longer than you've been alive or something along those lines. And it starts a dialogue. And I'll explain. And, I'll say, well, for a long time I did it because I wanted a bit bigger and stronger. I said, but it also was such a positive impact. It cured my anxiety. It cured my depression. And it started the gym saved my life. So I defeated anxiety. I defeated depression with the exercise component before I even got into the law of attraction stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I share that, almost universally, I know exactly what you mean. If I don't work out for a week or so, I start feeling really down. So even that connection, where else are you going to see another grown man, a 250-pound powerlifting grown man, openly discuss his depression with another man? And so it opens up a level of communication when you're in like-minded surroundings that you get that it isn't just how was your day. It's really able to start making a connection with people. And that's so exciting to me that the energy we put out is the energy we get back. We know that. We talk about that every week. But it's very tangible when you walk into an environment, how people are attracted to you, and they pick up on that energy really easily.
And I know you're not recommending that you just find these positive friends so you can dump on them about all the ways that you're depressed. You're also wanting to talk about how good things are going on in your life.
Yeah. That idea that when I say if that topic ever comes up, it is always me telling the story of the defeat of depression. Yes. There's never a moment of where I'm at. That's a long time ago. I cured and the treatment world hates that term. I cured my depression many years ago. It's not in remission; it's cured, and that bugs a lot of people. But I really believe that to be true. I changed my brain to a positive type brain. I will not be depressed again. Doesn't mean I don't have down days. If you can't stop that. I don't have them very long, but there will be days where I'm not always in the positive mindset. But I will never be depressed again. And so I never would share that. I would only share the absolute positive of where what this does for me. Nor will obviously in my field, obviously in my field I have dealing with people who are dealing with depression.
Oh, yeah.
That's a professional relationship, and I do not get in that transference or countertransference place where they don't have the ability to pull me down.
And again, to define terms, transference is.
It's transference or countertransference is when either the patient or the therapist get too enmeshed in the other one's life, or their problems. They actually own their problems. And, it is a very negative, desperate mindset, where, that I get into if I get into a session with a person, say a young man who's dealing with depression, and I feel sorry for him, or I try to emotionally, get emotionally invested in his problem, that's never healthy. That is that's a no-no in any therapy world. That's a no-no.
Right.
And, very important to understand that, if your therapist is I was at an intervention one time with this therapist who was crying because her client was being intervened on to go to treatment. And now I didn't make a big scene about that at the intervention, but when I was working with a client in treatment, I said, you cannot go back to that therapist. You can't. She's emotionally enmeshed in your problem, and she is a part of your problem. And she didn't like that, but that didn't really, that's something that can't happen.
No.
So when we are doing this, when we're putting it out there, the energy that we have, the idea that meeting people, surrounding yourself, you're going to be lifted up by this group. You're going to increase your income. You're going to increase your happiness by surrounding yourself with people who make more money, that are living a life you want. You want that in your life. When I was a young man and really getting into my weightlifting, I had such a wonderful, in my mind, experience. I went to work out at this really hardcore gym in Florida. It's called All American Gym in Lakeland, Florida. And this was nothing but, I was this little skinny kid, and here's these grown men, bodybuilder, power lifters. And I wanted to go work out with people who were stronger than I was. I wanted to learn what they were doing.
Yeah.
And that was a great experience. They were wonderful. They took the time. They made sure I was doing it right. But at the same time, I didn't want to go be the strongest guy. I wanted to be the strongest guy. But I had no shot with that crowd. And so I'm excited when I'm around people who lift me up. I like you're going to Abraham Hicks this weekend. We do law of attraction. You do law of attraction like 9 days a week,
Yeah.
But yet you're going on Saturday, and because that's next level stuff, and,
right.
And you're going to benefit from that. It isn't none of us, at least the co-hosts that I'm familiar with. I think we're all learners. I think we're people who want to know more. I don't know. I don't want to be known as, well, Joel knows it all. He can't be told anything. I love to hear new stuff. I want to learn.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the primary criteria of being alive is, I believe. The moment that we've lost our interest in learning anything is the moment we're saying to the universe, I'm ready to die. I'm done.
Yeah. And that's such an important thing to understand. I mean, it's such an important thing that this gets into an area that we've talked about before that most people have a really hard time with, and I can bring it back to our topic. I really am more and more convinced, almost weekly, and I heard it explained the other day from a crazy physician guy that's brilliant, and so he said it in words that I couldn't repeat or understand. There's way over my head, but the concept that our point of life is happiness is within struggle. It's within striving. It's within effort. Being in comfort, and I know that we're talking about definitions, but when you don't want to not learn, the idea that we're placed here to achieve, and that means different things. I don't mean everybody needs to go make $1 million, even though I hope you do. That's not what I mean by that. Things are created. Great art is created by people who are passionate about great art. Yeah. I don't want Van Gogh to say, I don't want to paint him. I mean, I wanted him to paint. We needed him to paint. because it's part of who we are. We need the stuff that was written. We need people who are out there striving. And so the excitement, most people get stuck in the fear of performance or the fear of action or the fear of whatever because they're worried about failure. Well, redefining that to a place of, I want to get out there and go. I want to do it. I want to, you were doing the podcast. You've stuck with this podcast for how many years now, Walt?
5.5 now.
Yeah. And there's been some really lean times.
Oh yeah.
You've had some, not beginning your personal issues, but you've had some difficult times over that 5.5 years. But yet you kept going, and we're on the edge of this breaking out in a huge way right now. Huge.
Yeah.
So I look at that. It's a success already, and it's going to continue to be a success because you kept pushing forward. You struggled at sometimes to keep it going, but you kept it going.
That's true. And
there's nothing wrong with that. The struggle is what's going to make it feel better when you go. So the idea, having a group of people around you who are not afraid of the struggle, who are not supporting your struggle. I give again I promise the last gym analogy during the day. In the gym's an equal opportunity for everyone. The weights don't care if you're disabled. It doesn't care what race you are. It doesn't care anything. All it cares about is, I weigh this much. Can you pick me up or not? Period. No discrimination. It's just right there. And there's people in the gym, they can help you, but they can't do it for you. It doesn't do any good for them to do it for you. So everything, an example in real life, I love to help people, but I can't fix it for them. It's like with my son, Justin. I don't want him to feel like he's suffering. All his needs are, and all of his wants, probably more than they should be, are taken care of. But I also want him to be able to get up. It's my responsibility to get my homework done. He last week he told me on a Wednesday night, he said, "Dad, I have a project due tomorrow." And I said, "Well, it's not going to get done tomorrow." And he said, "Well, can we run out to the store and get the poster board?" I go, "No, son, it's 9:00 at night." And he lost a letter grade because he had to wait till the next night to do it. I don't do his work for him. But it wasn't being mean. It's just what he learned that. And so next project, we're not going to wait till the night before. Pretty simple.
Very simple.
So surrounding ourselves with people, it isn't just about positive, but it's people who are honest with you. It's people who will not fix the struggle for you, but will be there as you struggle, that will encourage you to get yourself out of it, to work. They can give you all the advice in the world, but they can't do it for you. That's the positive group that I want.
I like the point you made, too, about, say, a famous painter. And what occurred to me was, I think you mentioned Van Gogh. One of my favorite artists is Vermeer, who was known for his tremendous ability to create huge amounts of light and of contrast and really make a vivid scene with his paintings. And he actually used a device. He used a mechanical device in order to help him visualize the scene and give him a way to draw it out. But I imagined to myself, what if Vermeer had decided, you know what, I don't want to go to all the trouble of doing all that. Maybe I'll just get a paint-by-numbers kit. Yeah. We would have been deprived of one of the greatest artists of all time if he had done anything like that. Now, fortunately, during his time period, I don't believe paint by numbers actually existed. But if it had, and if he had gone that way, we would have lost out, because what he did, the way he did it, without a paint by numbers kit, was extraordinary.
The idea that so much that we rely on and almost everything comes from people having the willingness to go further. I was, interestingly enough, it's funny, I was listening to my book that I'm listening to on Audible right now is the 5-Second Rules. Great book. I recommend it. Mel Robbins is the author of the book. Great book.
Okay.
And what she was referring to is she was describing how action and moving forward create great things. And the Post-it note was actually created by a guy in a choir, a church choir, and they needed to mark his spot, but he didn't want to mess up so he created sort of a piece of tape over a little square, and they realized, what if the adhesive part, the soft adhesive, was right there? He created a Post-it note out of a need to not lose his place out of a choir book. It's amazing stuff like that. Now, I don't know if the world would be in bad shape without a Post-it note, but it certainly makes it a little bit better for us to have it. And it's amazing stuff is developed with that. Our artist, Einstein's theories and all the other stuff that are really starting to be, that's not easy stuff, but they're driven to do that. I want us to be driven. I want us to surround ourselves with people who are driven. It's about being on that journey. It's an exciting journey. When you find your journey, whether it's Post-it notes or creating the theory of relativity, it doesn't matter. You're on your journey, and we all can have our own journey, and they're all unique. That's what I love. Is you don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah, you don't. And it's great when you have those like-minded friends. It's why it's so important to build up that circle, because when you have the like-minded friends and you go around the corner and you find what's there, and it leads you to do some wonderful new X that you hadn't done before, and then you have your cheering section saying, "Whoa, that's great! Way to go!" Boy, that's the best thing in the world.
It really is, and that's the I've the evolution of everything that's going on in my world. I'm always looking and hearing, and I have this person who made an interesting suggestion the other day, and it's unlikely I'm going to follow this. He's a very wealthy businessman in Florida, and he said, "If you thought about," he said, "how do we get all?" He wants to open up a church/learning center for metaphysical concepts and law of attraction.
Oh,
and he said, you need to be in the right town. Sarasota, Florida has a lot of sort of that mindset folks. And he said, I really think that there's a need for that. Not that there's not, I'm sure there's some out there on some level, but the word church scares a lot of people off. So I don't know if we want to call it that, but,
sure.
He said, if I get it started or get it running or funded, he said, would you come lead it?
Wow.
Whatever that means. And
yeah.
I said, well, I always listen to ideas, but, and I love Sarasota, Florida. It's right near the bench, on Anna Maria Island. So, within that spectrum of all that, I don't know that that's not something I do one day. It's not what I feel I'm going to be doing right now, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that other people are thinking, so when somebody calls you, one of your friend group calls you with an idea like that, that's a suggestion you're in the right friend group.
Yes. Good point. Because otherwise you wouldn't get requests like that. Right.
And so my friend group is looking out for me. I have, here's another example of what a amazing friend group that I have and how it all works together. I have a client, great young man, just struggling getting a job. And so I reached out the other day. I said, look, I got a 23-year-old young man. He really wants to get to work. Solid guy. He had a DUI a couple of years ago, and he's just getting his license back. So he hasn't been able to really find a job. Is anybody hiring? Do you know of anybody? He had 3 job offers by the end of the day.
Nice.
That's a wonderful peer group or friend group I can go to. It's a great resource. He's working for one of my friends' companies now, and they love him. He's doing great. He'll do great.
That's good.
And so having that resource at my disposal comes from having positive people around, and that's what I want our audience to develop. It seems sort of harsh, especially when we talk maybe even family members. It doesn't mean you don't love somebody, but having them in your daily active friend group or circle of support is your weakest link in that is pretty much the most negative link in that is pretty much the problem. And moving on from that is just a very important step.
So the criteria then is if it's a family member, because obviously the family member, that's the one that's the most difficult to say no to, right? So if it's a family member, the criteria has to be, do they contribute to feeding my need for positivity, for to my need for reinforcing what it is I love about my life and not getting me dragged down into something really bad. If they're willing to be that kind of person, if they are that kind of person to at least some important degree, then okay, they can be included. They do have a role to play in the group. If they can't be that, it becomes incumbent upon us to say, you know what, I got to draw a line here. I got to draw a line because I only want what is best for me in my life. And right now, being dragged down by your problems just isn't helping me.
Yeah. And it's hard to say. I mean, the example I've used several times, and probably on this show several times too, is the lifeguards in Hawaii, those huge waves. They are trained that if they see somebody struggling and they need to get into the water to help them, they are trained to wait till they go underwater and then pull them out and revive them. Because when they're just jumping around, scared to death, thinking they're going to die, the energy to subdue them or restrain them and then pull them up will drown the lifeguard.
Really?
So you're literally told to let them almost become unconscious, if not unconscious, pull them up, and then administer CPR is the way to save the lifeguard and the person.
Interesting.
The idea that you have to let people get their struggle because they will drag you down if you don't. It doesn't mean you can't help somebody, but you can't be stuck in their flailing about in life because it's so easy to get caught up in the other drama. You don't even realize you're caught up in it.
Isn't that an interesting point? You have to allow the other person to struggle so that they don't drag you down. That's not something we hear very often.
No, it is, that becomes such an important thing. The idea that, like your friend with the IRS issue or the tax issue, it's one way or another, it's going to fix itself. It will fix itself by future lessons, or she had to pick up the phone and take care of herself. No matter what happened, you helped her. Now she might not think you helped her. She might be angry at you.
It's quite possible.
It doesn't matter because at some point it got taken care of. Tax deadline passed, and so she's either going to have a penalty for that or an additional penalty or all these other things. But it doesn't matter because the help that she needed is either now or next year. I promise you she won't be in that situation. I had in my really struggling times, many years ago, I was in Tampa in a condo, and I didn't pay my electric bill. And for 2 weeks, I stayed in Florida with no electricity and no air conditioning. It was horrible. Now, I will tell you, I have never not paid my electric bill since then.
Yeah, I imagine.
I have never not paid my electric bill. That was a lesson that was 30 years ago that I remember clearly today.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great lesson. Somebody could have paid that for me, and I wouldn't have learned that lesson. I would have eventually learned it, but I didn't learn it. I wouldn't have learned it on that time. So there is advantages in all this, and this is an exciting time. We have access to just unlimited knowledge, unlimited people, and finding like-minded people. There's really no better way no matter what level of your mission you're on or where you're at in the law of attraction, the more law of attraction type positive mindset people, the more in your orbit, the better you're going to be, the better all of you are going to be.
I understand, and I have direct experience because I have you as a friend. So thank you once again for being a great friend, because what you've been sharing today just reinforces for me. I am so glad I get to do these podcasts with Joel every week. It's the best thing that happens to me, I tell you.
Walt, I love it. I love it as well. I really enjoy our time together, and I know it's just such a. I hope our audience feels the real sincerity of what we're bringing, because we really believe what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, and I think they do. And by the way, before we leave, for somebody who wants that direct help, because you're a good person for giving that help, how do they reach out to you?
My website is joelelston.com, and my email account is joelelston@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out, and we can talk about if I would be able to help you or not, or I might be able to refer you, but certainly would love to hear from you.
Sounds great. Joel, I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Walt, you as well.
All right, we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.